Welcome to Perspectives from WFSU Public Media. I'm Tom Flanagan. Using the Zoom platform, we're pre-recording this on Tuesday, May 25th for playback on Thursday, May 27th with the program to air on WFSU FM. We'll also archive it on WFSU.org. Well, Tallahassee's Frenchtown really has a long and a storied history, particularly when it comes to a creative culture that has really flourished since the beginning of the community. And today there's a concerted effort to not only celebrate what was, but also to develop and nurture what is and what is yet to be. And so on today's Perspectives, as part of that and going beyond that topic as well, we are honored to welcome Wanderlust on location. These are folks who are involved in this cultural renewal effort and a whole bunch of other really neat stuff. And I wanted you to meet them. So let's get right to that. We'll say hi first to the person who helped to organize this whole effort, Laura Hope London, actor, producer, writer, academic, and I love this, all around creative maven. That is it. Do you have that on a business card or what, Laura?
Funnily enough, in my early days as a creative, I did in my early 20s, but the feedback on that was mixed. But so it's an unofficial title.
Okay, well, it's so good to have you. Thanks for coming on board here. And you brought some friends too, and this one we know real well. Royce Lovett, singer, songwriter, speaker, motivational type person, and formerly Tallahassee represent on The Voice and just all over the place and doing so many things. Royce, thanks for coming on deck today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Tom. What's up, everybody? How you doing?
Well, let's see. Let's find out how Jakaila is doing. Jakaila Scaife, who is a poet here in town. We are going to hear you recite some poetry a little bit later on in this program, Jakaila, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tom. It's a pleasure to be here.
And we'll wind up here with founder of Black on Black Rhyme, Keith Rogers is in the house. Keith, thank you for being part of the conversation today on Perspectives.
Yeah, I thank you for having us. You know, I'm kind of shy, so this is new to me.
Well, we're going to be hearing a lot more from you, man, throughout the hour. So thank you again for coming on. Laura Hope London, why don't you give us the little 30,000-foot thumbnail overview here of Wanderlust on location and your current project. What's up with that?
Yes. Okay. So Wanderlust was founded in 2018 while I was still actually a PhD student at Florida State. So was created as a nonprofit theater and sort of began its mission as a site-specific theater company. So what that means is that we don't perform our shows on traditional stages or in traditional theater spaces. We actually use existing local spaces as the backdrops for all of our shows, which allows us to use theater as a way of community building and community engagement, and also a reflection of local identity. So that's really our mission, is telling community stories through the theater that we create on location in the community. So when we started, we debuted with a project called Musicals on the Move in 2019, which utilized 6 local businesses in Midtown Tallahassee as the locations for a series of mini pop-up musicals, which was a lot of fun. And then after that, we were commissioned to create an original site-specific adaptation of A Christmas Carol as part of Thomasville's Victorian Christmas Festival that they do every year, which was also a really fantastic community building experience. And then after Christmas Carol, we started planning our programming for the summer of 2020. And we had actually announced a site-specific production of Into the Woods, which was going to be staged on location in the woods at Litchgate Park, which, you know, ties in very nicely with the sort of fairy tale inspired history of that space and that location. So we were really excited about that. But then, of course, COVID-19 hit. And as the severity of the pandemic started to unfold, we very quickly realized that live theater was pretty much on pause indefinitely, live performance of any kind. So, you know, like many artists that were grappling with all of those uncertainties, you know, when would we be able to have any kind of live performance? We realized that we needed to adapt and find new ways of bringing a site-specific experience to Tallahassee that remained true to our mission of community engagement and using the community as a site of theater, but could also be safely enjoyed with any COVID-related restrictions. And also in the midst of our planning, the murder of George Floyd occurred, which is actually today's the anniversary of that tragedy. And as we all know, the Black Lives Matter movement really gained a global awareness, and that really shone a glaring light on the racism and inequality that permeates our society and our institutions. And as theater artists, we were now taking a hard look at the way those systems function in the theater. And our primary mission as Wanderlust is to tell stories that reflect community. And we felt that now more than ever, it was a time to look at whose stories were being told and who was telling those stories. So that's kind of how the Frenchtown Project came to fruition. So yeah, between the pandemic and the questions and concerns raised by that, and also the Black Lives Matter movement, that's where the idea for the Frenchtown Project came to be. So we started thinking, how can we create a site-specific theater experience that maybe people could experience in a socially distant way on their own, in a way that they would feel comfortable. And we were aware that the city had unveiled recently the Frenchtown Heritage Trail, which, if the listeners don't know, it's a series of 13 historical markers that tell the history of Frenchtown, which is, of course, Tallahassee's historic neighborhood. A lot of historians call it Florida's oldest Black neighborhood. We can trace it back to the Marquis de Lafayette and, during the Revolution as a place for free Blacks to live and work. So Frenchtown has an incredible history. And we thought, what if we were able to create sort of a socially distant audio musical that guests could download free and listen to as they walk the Heritage Trail. So the idea is, once you're on the Heritage Trail, which are, marked and lined in this order, guests would listen along to these songs and stories and poems and scenes that were about the very place that they were standing. So that keeps it true to a site-specific theater experience that, is our mission to create, and it also reflects our community identity and really kind of highlights the rich history of Frenchtown that is, often overlooked. And the community, of course, continues to, face hardships and gentrification and, the borders of FSU kind of pushing on it all the time. So we really wanted to amplify the neighborhood stories and invite audiences to learn and celebrate our local identity through a new and socially distant and safe creative experience. And then the other component of this, which then I will hand off to my wonderful collaborators on this piece, is in thinking about, what stories get told and who tells those stories. It was really important for Wanderlust to commission exclusively local Black artists to create this work. We wanted to serve basically as the stewards of the piece and the creation of the site-specific element of it, but it was very important to the mission of this piece that the creative components of this all come from local Black artists who are connected with the community and the Frenchtown community.
One of those artists, Laura, certainly is Royce Lovett. And Royce, we're going to hear a part of your demo here, the living segment here in just a second. But before we do that, could you kind of set that up for us and also include how you got involved in Laura's overall project here?
Yeah, definitely. This project has definitely been exactly what I needed, especially during, I think everything happens for a reason, but especially during this COVID time where originally I would have been on tour, promoting a new record that I just put out, but all those things just kind of, fell through the cracks. And Laura and I started talking on the phone. I'll get a phone call every once in a while, kind of talking about this idea. And to be completely honest with you, the first few conversations, although I know her to be a very genuine person, sometimes ideas for doing something for Black communities often fall through the cracks, often get left out or forgotten. And so I didn't put too much money on this thing happening or getting a call back and saying that, hey, we're moving, let's write these songs. And that was a blessing for me, I think, just as Black son, Black father, Black citizen in Tallahassee who frequent Frenchtown barbershop since I was a kid. Every other Saturday, getting homemade dill pickles from the candy man that walked around, and going to the drugstore, my mom, my grandmother, and hearing stories. I think it was just such a blessing for me. At the same time, pancaked with this new kind of identity I've been finding the past 6 years of storytelling. And to be a honest and a true storyteller, you have to go get stories. And then as you're gathering these stories, you're finding humanity in yourself that you never knew. And you're finding humanity in other people that you never knew. And it just becomes adventurous. So this whole project for me has just been like such a grateful adventure gift. I've been able to talk to beautiful people like Ann Roberts, my dad. I've been getting stories from my dad that he's never, ever told me. Like was like, hey, Dad, you ever heard of something called lead bread? And he just gets his biggest smile on his face. He was like, lead bread? I love lead bread. Who told you about lead bread and ice cream? And he's just like telling me all these stories about Frenchtown and what used to happen. My dad will be 74 this year. And just speaking to, people, speaking to, his elders that are still living, trying to get stories, it's just been incredible. So setting up this first record, most likely this demo right here will be what kind of intros this journey that you'll go on. I definitely wanted to make sure you felt Frenchtown in the music. I wanted you to feel the hope and the pain and the gratitude and the safetyness and the fear and the creative elements. I wanted you to feel all those things because, to be quite honest with you, you can't see it anymore. And so for me, it was a big pressure on my heart to make sure that we're feeling these things. So in these lyrics and in these stories that you'll kind of hear in some of these demos, have just been, when I listen to it, I just turn it on and I smile. And so this first record that I believe you're going to play is called Frenchtown Living. And it's been a lot of fun. So that'll be all I say, I guess.
Let's go ahead and hear it. This is Royce Lovett's demo here from the Frenchtown demo series. This is called Living. Local references abound in that, and the feel of it, Royce. I remember first moving down to Tallahassee many, many years ago, and the area of the downtown along Macomb Street was still there. You didn't have the Renaissance Center. You didn't have the new construction. Mm-hmm. But the feel of that tune, you kind of feel that, especially late night vibe along Macomb Street. There was a lot of activity. The rest of Tallahassee was closed up tighter than a drum. But you'd go down on Macomb Street and there would be people, there'd be activities. The poll hall was going, there was music playing, there was barbecue cooking. I mean, it was really a vibrant scene. And that's what living sounds like to me.
I appreciate that, because that's what it is, right? Living is about excitement. It's about safety. It's about security. It's about fear. It's about love, loss. Working your way through those situations, and so I'm really excited to get in the studio with just other amazing local artists. Local musicians, to really get the heart and the soul inside this full production that people will hear. I don't like to create in a vacuum. So as I'm gathering these stories, I'll create, and I will go walk the trail myself and just put my headphones on and listen to what's happening. And maybe it's me being biased, who knows, but when I'm walking down the street, I have different feelings of wow, I wish I could have, experienced some of these things I'm hearing. And sometimes I have a feeling of like, oh, I remember this and I remember this. And so I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited about Frenchtown Living and being able to work alongside some favorite of mine, wordsmith, these poets that just pull history and characters together inside this music has been just really fun.
Well, that oral feel is there, man. Beautifully done. Let's talk to Keith Rogers, one of your collaborators here on the project. And Keith, talk about your involvement in this particular deal and what you brought to the table and how you see this playing out.
Well, first of all, Laura made me do it, and Royce made me do it. So I was bound by the rhyme and the pressure of peers. Okay, we as Black on Black Rhyme, we love. I'm not gonna say challenge, but we love having new things to write about that we didn't think of ourselves. Like everything out of your mind that you think of, but when somebody bring you something and that's as historical as this, hey, it's like squeezing a historical orange. The juices start flowing, and we're gonna vitamin C what we produce. So it's been a pleasure, and getting in the studio with Royce. Actually, I actually been enjoying the Zoom calls with Laura. Like, she's so excited. You can't help but to get excited about it. Like, it's been good. Then Royce with his jokes and stuff, like it adds to your creativity. Like, hold on, I can write a rhyme better than that joke. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. So now we're putting it on audio, putting it on paper, we're putting it in history, and it's good. When I told Royce I went from French fries to Frenchtown writing that poem. So yes.
Well, the other thing though is the long and really illustrious history of oral history in the African American community, because for years and years there wasn't a whole bunch written down, and it was the stories that were passed on from generation to generation. Like Royce just said, his dad's telling him stuff now he didn't even know existed. But this was the prime way of communication when you talk to people like Altamise Barnes, or some of the folks who have been around the area for a while, and they're trying to kind of encapsulate and recapture all of that information before it vanishes. And this is kind of part of what you're also doing. You're perpetuating a lot of these stories and images and feelings that otherwise might be lost.
Right. I had a friend about 10 years ago, well, not even a friend, somebody I met. I was in the Goodbread neighborhood. It was this family, they got a little area that's still there. They was out on the porch, and they was telling us about why it was called Goodbread. And I remember the story, and I couldn't think of his name. And about a month ago, I saw him at the red light on Adams Street, Orange and Adams. And I remember his car. And on the front of his car, he got Boss Man. That was his nickname, Boss Man. And I got his number, and I called him, and he retold me the story. And I wrote a poem. It's not the one I'm doing today, but one called Goodbread. The real reason they call it Goodbread. And it was. I had told Royce about it. I was like, I know this man. I'm gonna go find him. But through traffic in Tallahassee, I found him without even searching for him. And I got that story. I put it in a poem, and we called from the studio, let him hear it. He said, make these few changes or whatever. So it was good. So that oral history is out there. It's just who hears it and who knows about it to write it down and take it to the next level. And that's what we're doing with this project.
So what's your contribution to the Frenchtown project, Keith? Talk about that particular piece.
I wrote 30 poems, but they said they only needed 2 from me. So I'm just playing. I didn't write 30 poems. Roy's like, no, you did. No, you did. What we did, we Black rhyme with a group of poets, and it's 13 markers. So we got 2. Each poet is writing two poems for 2 markers, and one poet is writing 1, and he's taking the longest. I think I'm gonna go ahead and write that one for him. but we're doing it on our own. There is no criteria. We want everybody to be their own creators. But Jakaila, she wrote her two first, and she covered everything, and so it made us hard. It made it harder for us to not repeat something. So I had to come at it with a different angle than she did because she came at it with all angles. So I was like, what am I do it? So one time for my good bread story that she didn't know about, so she couldn't write about that.
Well, you just name checked Jakaila. Let's bring her in on this too. And was this also a phone call from Laura? How did you get involved in the project, Jakaila?
Well, I want to hear that good bread poem, Keith, by the way. But well, I was actually reading a book one night, and Keith called me for a Zoom call with him and Royce talking about the project. And they expressed their interest about, documenting Frenchtown's rich cultural history. And, they asked me to write, the two pieces. So we went on a tour of the Frenchtown Trail, looked at the marquees, read, listened to some of those voices, and listened to the stories that Royce told us about gathering those oral history interviews of the citizens who were allowed during that time. So that in tandem, I have a degree from FAMU, a bachelor's in history and a minor in African American studies. And my specialty is oral history. So that was kind of aligned perfectly. I have a professor who lives in Frenchtown who I'm working on an oral history project around the experiences of formerly incarcerated Black women. So it kind of aligned very perfectly. And my perspective is unique because I am looking at the position of women during that time as well, in terms of how women were instrumental in keeping the community together. So in my pieces, I talked to Royce about taking on a character of sorts. So honestly, in the moment, he was like, you should name this character. We named her Eve, Eve Emancipation. So, kind of emancipation from slavery, emancipation from darkness, emancipation from brutality, and taking that macro lens of Frenchtown and broadening it to a macro scope of the broader African American experience and encapsulating that in the pieces. So I think it's beautiful how art can serve as that bridge from past and present, but also serve as a healing mechanism to seal those wounds that were created from those who came before us. So in turn, that's how I kind of got my start. I've been a Black on Black Crime member and poet since 2019. And this has been a wonderful experience. I was actually my first time recording anything ever, and with Royce, him producing me and such. So that was a beautiful experience, and the first of many.
Well, you've been talking about it. Let's hear it. This is Jakaila Scaife, and this is called Eve of Emancipation. Such a great piece, and they say timing is everything, as our program here is coming right after the celebration of emancipation here in Florida, which, if all goes as its advocates plan, this will be a statewide celebration, not dissing Juneteenth, but this is sort of Florida's own personal celebration of emancipation. What was going through your mind when you actually read those words of yours, Jakaila? Because you're right, you put on a persona that is, I just found that to be, this is a lady I need to know, because there's so much power, there's so much determination in her voice. Where did that come from?
That came straight from my grandmother. I actually have one of my signature pieces is called The Grandmother's Spirit. And it talks about the spirit of neutrality, the spirit of righteousness, the spirit of non-judgment, the spirit of community building. And that is what I was channeling as I was writing the stories. You think about oral history, you have grandfathers and grandmothers who are sometimes serving as parents to their grandchildren if their fathers and mothers can't be there. They are the people you go to when you're in need. They are the and sitting on CEO boards and school boards and such. They are nonprofit owners. They are, giving scholarships to children. They are leaders in the community. So it comes from my background. I'm from Polk County, Florida. So it comes from my background there. The Southern cultural history that I come from but also the enrichment activities that I engaged in college and beyond. So, me being a historian, thinking, or junior historian, thinking about those nuances of the Black experience that sometimes get missed in textbooks. But art and theater, they have the power to make it come alive and make it engaging for audiences, which really helps to, pass on the lessons and stories. So as a storyteller, you have the responsibility and role, I feel, to give your all to the project and make sure the essence of those people and those stories and experiences are passed down. And certainly theater and performance and storytelling and oral studies are a great way to do that.
Well, Laura Hope London, you were talking here as Jakaila and Royce and Keith were of a cultural continuity that you are trying to pass along to a larger community to say, look what has been going on, kind of make perhaps below your personal radar, but this is a rich environment that you probably didn't realize was here, and we want to share this with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I went to the School of Theater at FSU for my PhD. I'm actually a PhD candidate there still. And that's right across the street, It's literally on the same street as Frenchtown. I drive past every day, past all these local businesses and see, people outside and, a lot of people, I think, that aren't, familiar with the history of Frenchtown or even just the current vibe in Frenchtown would just drive right past and not think anything of it. But there's history and stories in those streets and on all of those stoops. And Royce, took the time to visit with a lot of different people in the neighborhood, and we've been working with the folks at the John G. Riley House Center and Museum, who have been really, really helpful in connecting Royce with people in the community who could pass down those oral histories and be the inspiration for this theater piece, because we wanted all of the characters in the piece that you'll hear to be based on real people. That was also really important to the story, to have those voices be heard, because I think this is it's always important, but there's a lot of I think in general there's just like a culture of erasure, and it's important that doesn't happen in our community. And that really became very obvious to my collaborators at Wanderlust, that if we are doing community engaged theater, this is exactly what it's about, is preserving those stories, and kind of what Jakaila was saying, using theater to do that in a way that a history book can't, right? A theatrical experience brings it off the page and to life, and you're hearing those stories, in your ear or experiencing them right before you. Right now, this was all planned in the era of COVID, so it will be a listening experience that you'll walk the trail and be site specific, but there actually are plans as things continue to open back up to have a kind of live performance experience of this piece in collaboration with the Riley Museum. So we're hoping to do that sometime in the fall, and that will be an even more of an in-depth way that we can bring these stories to life, and kind of raise awareness and just celebrate the community. There's so many interesting things that I've learned about Frenchtown through this project. The history of the Redbird Cafe I knew nothing about. All of the iconic musicians that came through that are actually going to be inspiring some of the music that you'll hear that Royce has created, which is fantastic. Really infusing the cultural history of Frenchtown into the creation of the piece has been so fantastic.
Yeah, I want to see, Royce, if you caught that story about when Ray Charles came to town. I think he played at the Redbird, and I believe there was some trouble, perhaps not good trouble, but there was trouble nonetheless.
Yes.
He could be quite a character from what I understand.
Yes. There's so many awesome stories. Knowing that like him coming to Frenchtown became a part of him actually. Like some people say he lived here because he would stay for so long in Frenchtown, as well as like BB King would just sit and stay. I'm so excited about. There's a gospel record that possibly will transition out of the gospel record into Eve of Emancipation, and I'm so excited about the gospel record because the full circle kind of story with that is about James Baldwin, the time that he spent in Frenchtown. And he was, from the stories I've been hearing, is, he wrote a really awesome article about how hot Florida is. And I've been looking for it. I've been really close to finding it, and a community member says that they actually have the cutout. But as he was sitting in the Tukes Motel and learning that the Tukes Motel was a part of the Green Book, and like all these amazing pieces of culture and history that you find here. And the thing, well, let me not get ahead of myself. What I was going to say about the gospel record is that one of my favorite books that James has written is called Fire Next Time. And so taking his concept of Fire Next Time and applying it to these street preachers that my family is full of. I remember growing up, almost like, are we going to Frenchtown again to like set up a tent and preach and sing? Growing up as a kid, infusing that. And then, also taking this beautiful story that I didn't know about all these other amazing people that have come out of the Lincoln High School, what the graduates did and became, other people that came down the Chitlin circuit like Billie Holiday and Strange Fruit, and her being inspired by, really atrocities, very atrocity things to lay your eyes on as she was passing through the South to get to Frenchtown. And just combining all these things is incredible, because what I've seemed to learn is that as you uncover these amazing gems and you apply them to the youth, to the generation, and I don't mean just youth as far as age, but just maybe people who just didn't know the shoulders that they're standing on. You find this gratefulness, and that gratefulness turns into determination, and that determination turns into education, and then you have a new spiraling effect that you see inside your communities, and that spiraling effect will eventually change the world as we see it doing now. It's incredible what's happening, and so I'm really happy to be a part of this creative expression of history. I've been challenging myself as well, trying to take off a singer-songwriter hat and put on a more theatrical hat, and move those hats around sometimes, and not knowing too much about that style that Billie Holiday sang, but studying that. Like, I listen to a lot of Nina Simone, so pulling out my Nina Simone vinyl that I can't believe I actually found a few weeks ago, and listening and trying to find those notes, and working with my pianist, trying to find those movements so it feels as authentic and as true to the stories as possible. So I think when listeners hear this, they'll go on the walk. They'll tell other people to take the walk too. They'll play this as they're cleaning their house. They'll play it while they're riding down the street. Children will ask questions about it. My kids are asking questions about it. What is this, and what did this mean? And it's I think that's the right time of day to wake somebody up when they're asking questions. So
well, I'll tell you, that is a great setup for the final tune that we wanted to pull off of the demo and let everyone listen, because it captures those sentiments you were just talking about, Royce. This is called It Is Well. Again, references abounding from the glory days of Frenchtown, if you will, but some of those locations, some of those people are still here today and continue the impact on the greater community. And the great thing about this project, just from my attitude, is there are so many communities that remember what was, and they go into mourning, and they really can't muster, I think, the emotional fortitude to say, yes, those were great days, but we still have great days yet to come if we all work together and remember this older vision, and that's what our future will be based on. And Keith Rogers, let me get your take on that too, as far as your poetic sensibility. There is that kind of what you were trying to do again by saying, hey, let's remember the past, but let's use that as a springboard for what's next.
Well, when I think about the past is gone, but it leaves residue that you can build on, that you can remember. Like when you were saying the thing about the morning, I never thought about it like that. Like some communities, they're gone and the memories are gone. Like the people that lived it are gone. Frenchtown, you have people that was alive back then that's still around it, and they've recorded the history. And so in doing this, like I wasn't alive back then, so I have no idea how they. I can only go by words, and we as poets, we can hear something and we can expand on it. And it felt good writing the poems. Like I actually felt good trying to think how they lived then. And I know it was a lot of pain and struggling going on that time, but those thoughts didn't come to my mind when I was thinking about it. Like even when they tried to creep into the rhyme scheme, the it wouldn't let me, because like I said, I had met this family about 10 years ago, and the stuff that they were saying, and they may have said some stuff about they were struggling, but I don't remember anything negative they said. I don't know if they left it out intentionally or if they did say it, I just don't remember. But I have the tendency to look on the bright side of things or the other side. And where I pulled from, it was all good feelings. And it felt good to have good feelings in the present, because, the state of the world or whatever, I didn't have any bad feelings writing. And then listening to Royce and other poets' poems, like even when they mentioned stuff that may not have been good, they made it sound good in the way they did it, the creativity of it. It made me feel alive again. And I never not feel alive. I never felt dead because I don't know how that feels, but I felt alive again, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it do. And Jakaila, the same thing with your poem, Eve of Emancipation, how that was, we're looking ahead. Yes, we have had all kinds of terrible experiences in the past, but we are building on those. We're trying to get beyond that and use that as a positioner for something better to come. Jakaila, any final thoughts that you may have here? Time is growing short, and I want to give everyone a chance to get in some final comments here before we have to say goodbye.
And my final comments would be for any listeners to just keep an open mind and heart and get ready for the journey, because it takes you on a journey, and really take it as a learning lesson to infuse those pieces and infuse art, or even to create your own art as well, as a way to memorialize and honor that rich cultural history.
I think everyone should write, at least try to write a poem once in their life. It's a broadening experience for sure. And if you can't do that, produce a record, Royce Lovett, because that's certainly your bailiwick. And any final thoughts that you have here about the project, or perhaps some future adventures that are coming your way here?
Well, I'll keep this all centered around what we got going on here, but the future does look fantastic, and I say that across the board. I think that a lot of times, like you said, there's places in our lives that we can find mournful. This past year has been pretty mournful for me. And I think I've been more emotional than I've ever been. But inside of that loss and hurt and pain that I felt, there's a key element that I encourage everyone to rejoice about, and that is self-awareness. As we mourn and feel pain and feel gladness and feel happiness and understand where we're content and understand where we have weaknesses and strengths. Be happy that you are becoming self-aware, because only a self-aware person can be a grateful person. And then when you become grateful, then the rest of the world just grows with you. You grow and you allow other people to grow. And I think that through talking to one another, through communication, is the key thing. You know, I think some people may feel like, hey, I can't write a poem, I can't write a song, I can't paint a picture, I'm not a photographer, I can't act. It is about communication. Music is communication. Writing is communication. So use your stories. Communicate with those around you. If you're listening to this and you want to be a part, I'm pretty sure there's a call to action. You can get in touch with Wanderlust, WFSU, and we'll point you in some awesome, fantastic ways. Use your voice, and that's where you're giving it, you know, and you're giving ears to listen. And so I think that that would be like my final words to everyone, you know, out there listening, is to continue the conversations, continue to communicate, you know. And I'll end with this. You know, communication isn't just talking. Communication is understanding how to communicate with someone. So that's going to take a lot of listening. That's going to take a lot of digesting yourself, becoming self-aware to who you are, and then allowing someone to speak. So I mean, I don't know, Tom. I don't know what else I can really say, because like, and I'm just thinking back to, you know, last week when I was, you know, in Frenchtown, stopped at the barbershop, and we were taking pictures to help with some promotions, and just seeing the joy of the barbers coming out being like, hey, you taking pictures, this is awesome, I'm so excited that we're sharing this story. And then to see, you know, the daughter of the original owners of the drugstore come out and say, hey, do you need me to move something? Like, I don't need you to move anything, I'll move it, everything's fine, we're taking this picture, this is awesome. Like, just seeing people in the community saying like, hey, thank you so much for pointing some eyes and some ears over here. And so I implore everybody to do the same. I'm pretty excited about this, and so I thank you so much, Tom, for having me. This has been awesome.
Well, thank you, Royce. And we'll add historian and philosopher to the resume there on that. And so, final word from you, Laura Hope London, as far as the Wanderlust on location, this project and the future for you, quickly, if we can, please.
I don't know if I could put it any better than Royce the philosopher just did. But Wanderlust, you know, we are continuing to, we have a couple other projects in the pipeline that we're excited about that also will reflect community and build community identity through site-specific theater in you know, North Florida, South Georgia area. So stay tuned for that. But as Royce said, you know, we are still looking for collaborators and people to get involved in this project. We have received, fortunately, some wonderful support from some people in the community and from the Leon Cares Foundation. But in order to give this project, you know, make this worthy project everything that it could be, we're still looking for some community support. So if you would like to get involved or have any questions about the project, any of us would be happy to talk about it with you. And you can visit wanderlustonlocation.org or get in touch through WFSU, and they can point you towards us. We would be honored to have you involved in bringing this story to life, because it really does honor the citizens of Frenchtown, but it also shares these often overlooked stories with the broader Tallahassee community and allows people to listen. Because what Royce just said is so true. We learn the most, and we learn how to communicate by listening. So only fitting that this is an audio theater experience.
Yes, and we have been honored to listen to all of you folks today on our perspectives. Laura, Royce, Jakaila, and Keith, thank you for being part of the program, and all the best to all of you. Thanks for being so accessible in this regard here. Perspectives, by the way, produced by WFSU Public Media in Tallahassee. Thanks going out to Evan Rossi and Paul Dam, along with Amy Diaz de Villegas, Devin Bittner, Brandon Brown, Tricia Moynihan, and Lydell Rawls. Our director of content, Kim Kelling, is executive producer. I'm Tom Flanagan. Well, next week we plan to talk about construction. And as in the increasing need for more housing, particularly the affordable variety. Also, the fact that construction supply chains are in deep trouble. Have you priced plywood recently? It's kind of insane. We'll talk about it next week right here on Perspectives from WFSU Public Media. Take care.